So this is just an example of how to use Hype. So right here I've got the main interface done, and I've created a grid here that I've put these objects into, and these are just basic boxes with gradient fills, all of these guys here. So let's just take a look at the box here, which you can see has got dots around it now. And that is an object that can have different mouse states. So if you look over here in the mouse action inspector, you can see that I've got it set to a pointer when you roll into it. On mouse click, it's going to jump to a scene, and that scene is the zombie story, because this is the zombie story, and it's going to do that with a crossfade transition. And up here you can see the three scenes that I've set up: the home page, the zombie story, and the sun exposure story. So let's take a look at, so that's one state. That's if I click on the story, but maybe I want to know something about the story before I actually click on it. So if I just roll into that box, I can do something. So, and that's called the mouse over state. So if you see down here on mouse over, it says go to time and timeline and 1 second, and it goes to the pop-up timeline. So let's take a look at that. This is the main timeline for this scene, but I can also go to the pop-up scene, and if you see here, it goes out to 1.5 seconds, and you'll notice what happens is I go along that timeline, it gets more opaque. So anytime after about 1 second, it actually is completely opaque, so it's showing, but back here it's absent. So it's always there, it's just an opaque state. So what this is saying is on mouse over, go to a place in the timeline where it's actually opaque. So it actually sort of jumps to here. So it's creating a sticky that comes up. And then it pauses the timeline. So it says go to there, stop. So it's basically moving the marker into that zone. Now if I look at the mouse out state, it says go to time and timeline 000 in the pop-up timeline, and if I take that back to 0, it disappears, right? And so basically what's happening is I roll over, it jumps to a place where it's opaque, I roll out, and it jumps to a place where it's absent. And if I come back to the main timeline here, you notice that the sticky is not there, because I've made it the transparency 0 in the main timeline. So that's basically how you control jumping from place to place. Now I can go to the zombie story scene, and you can see here that I've added some animation. So if I actually scrub this timeline, this is the main timeline, I've set the blur state of the main background photograph to kick into 100% blur by the time it gets to 1 second. But I've done the reverse with the main photographs, main small photograph, so now it's not only its opacity is increasing to 100, but the blur state is going from 100 there to 0 here. So it sort of swaps the positions of those images. And the only other thing I've done on this page is if I click on the return to main page, it says on mouse click jump to scene home page and push it left. So that's the transition. So if I push on that button, I go back to the main page. So that's basically all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward once you get your head around these concepts. So hope that was helpful.